Hey everybody, it's Brian Kramer back on HTA's Chat. We are so excited to be here because we get to talk about ratings and reviews today. That means that we get to talk about those people out there that are reviewing you despite how you feel. I'm kidding. We care how you feel, but they may not. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about all kinds of great things that goes into this. Before we get into it, before I actually introduce our guest, I'd like to say a quick hello to Suzie. How are you doing this afternoon at 3 o'clock your time, New York-ish area?
I'm doing well. I'm doing good. Ready
You had
to
a birthday
go.
this weekend. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. I took Friday off, so today I am paying the piper for, the email inbox. But yeah, it was nice. Gorgeous. So yeah, I'm super excited that we're going to have Daniel on. This is going to be awesome.
It is. It is. Let's talk about him like he's not here. No, I'm kidding. This Daniel character, I don't know about him. So let me introduce you to Daniel. For those of you who have not met him, although I think maybe he kind of doesn't do the live video stuff as much, but the dude can write and he can strategize with the best of them. If you want a strategy guy, this is your guy, and I only know that because I've seen his work, and I can say that honestly. He's become a really good friend of mine and ours. Daniel is the author of I'm going to say it right, Manipurated.
Yes.
And a best-selling book about the online reputation business, as well as a senior strategist with Jay Bear, his Convince and Convert consulting group. He's been seen in the New York Times, USA Today, and on Fox News, CBS Radio, and many other news outlets. Daniel, that is. And he was an early Google hire. He worked for Google. Interesting. If you search for his name, will you find it? That is interesting. Can somebody do that and let me know what you find out? And he's been in the digital marketing space for more than 15 years. So that's older than my youngest son. Anyway, I wanted to introduce Daniel, and I wanted to say hello, and how are you doing, Daniel? How's it going?
Hello. Happy Monday. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday.
So give us a sense as to the idea, the concept behind this book, because it's kind of a little bit different than what you do in your day job. Kind of. I mean, it certainly relates. It's all interrelatable. But where did you get your passion for online reviews, and how did that take off and launch into a book?
Yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, the book is it's kind of written for small business owners. It's real. I'm just going to hold it up here. It's not very big. It's real skinny. And the reason I did that was I was trying to digest for business owners or really simplify ratings and reviews, some of the foundational stuff that they needed to know about it. And it kind of came out, that whole thing came out of a conversation with a friend of mine who had a hair salon. There it is.
Nice.
There it is. And he had a hair salon in Venice on Abbot Kinney, and he kind of just went through everything a business owner, a sole proprietor goes through: bad reviews, crazy customer who left, hyperbolic, lace-filled review on his Yelp profile, didn't know about it. Yelp calls and says, "Hey, look, you should pay us money, and we can maybe make this go away for you, or help you get other reviews that make this go away." And he just didn't know where to turn, did not know what to do. And as he was kind of going through it and saying, this has been my experience, I don't know what to do. A lot of stuff I learned when I was at Google came back to me, stuff about kind of the trolls on the internet who do hateful black hat SEO things. And the dots started to connect a little bit, and I thought, this is just a story that hasn't been told. Business owners need to know this, because the big brands we work with, you work with at Pure Matter, and that I work with, they kind of know, but business owners that don't have that resource don't really know. That was kind of the idea behind it.
Tell me what kind of research goes into something like this, because I mean, where do you even start? I mean, the reviews are everywhere, but how do you figure out the formula behind reviews? And I want to get to the formula. We'll get there, but how did you do that?
I just talked to a bunch of businesses. What I was trying to get at was not so much how does the industry work. That was part of the story. But for me, the more important part was how, as a business owner who has like negative time in your week available for anything new, how are you doing this successfully? Because a lot of businesses are doing a really good job of it. And I thought there must be a formula for that. I can certainly, tell people everything I know about the internet
Yeah.
and the web. I can do that, but there must be a formula people have followed to kind of make it operationalize it a bit for their business. And I discovered that there is. I mean, there's some business owners who are doing a really, really great job of that, and that to me was an interesting finding. It's sort of like, wow, there's a shift in how these people are doing their business. It's actually one Jay Baer wrote about in his book Hug Your Haters, that sort of shift to being super customer focused, like 100% customer focused. Maybe that's starting with small businesses. I don't know. That is kind of where I see it going.
Okay, that's awesome. So tell me now about the process of reviews. And by the way, this is a pretty big question because reviews are on almost every site out there that has a purchase process oriented with it or embedded. And so I would think a review process would be different everywhere, but maybe you're approaching this more from the marketing side. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, every business has reviews. Dentists, doctors, plastic surgeons, everyone. And so it's not the same for every business, but the idea is really that it's someone's job to take care of that, feed that beast. Otherwise, it kind of goes native on you. It just turns into all kinds of evil and can work against your business, your brand, real quick if you're not paying attention to it.
Yeah.
Whether it's a business owner or someone who's in charge of the reviews on behalf of it, that depends on the size of the company and their industry. Some businesses don't get millions of reviews. If you're a wedding photographer, you might have a potential for 2 a week at the most.
Right.
So you can handle that differently than if you're a coffee shop that's.
And I just sorry to interrupt, but I had a personal experience this weekend with a review, not of me. I mean, my wife reviews me all the time, but I don't want to talk about her.
Not publicly.
Not publicly.
Well,
Oh yeah, she does, kind of, huh? Yeah. No, she does. Actually, that's my problem. Can we talk about that? No, I'm kidding. So
where's Courtney?
She's not on, or she'd be tweeting a review of me right now.
Yep.
So I used TaskRabbit, and I ordered somebody to come out and install a ceiling fan, and he didn't bring his own ladder. And I put in the comments that he was installing a ceiling fan. So disconnect. Now, once I borrowed my neighbor's ladder and got the whole thing situated, we got it done, and he installed it. But the whole thing took 2 hours. And okay, so anyway, you're kind of sensing like the typical pain of what somebody goes through, right? I'm not to paint my picture, but people have like, there's no perfect. And so a review is when you look at reviews and they give them 5 stars or they give them 4 stars this or 1 star this. I'm looking at this and I gave the guy 5 stars because the rest of the process was great once I got the ladder. I didn't want to like jeopardize his review system because I know how much reviews count, so I gave him 5 stars. I wonder how many people do that, and what is the methodology? What's the psychology that goes into reviews, like what I went through?
You're too nice.
What?
You're too nice. You're too nice. I mean, I actually think most people want to be fair, and maybe don't want to be nice, but they at least want to be fair. The thing is, I don't think most people, if you had like an average experience anywhere, you're not gonna say, hey, I'm gonna go write a review about that because it was average. You're not, unless you are so amazed or so ticked off, you're not gonna write a review unless you're asked or sort of suggested or requested to. And that's actually a big area I discovered a lot of businesses overlook. They assume that middle pack of the customer they don't want to hear from them because they're worried it would bring their ratings down. But actually, when you do that, you're counting on someone being really happy or really angry, and that's a tough bet to take. I mean, you're counting on your very best day every day. And I don't know if I wouldn't want to do that myself. I don't have a great day every day. Fortunately, I don't get a lot of reviews, so perhaps there's a lesson there too.
Is it ironic that your last name is Lemin and you're writing about reviews? The Lemon Law? Huh? So,
I could have gone there. I could have gone there on the title.
And we'll talk about that offline. So now, okay, that's the consumer side. So let's talk about how a business should manage their reviews. What did you come up with?
Well, the ones that do it well, regardless of the fact they get 2 a week or 200 a week or more, they kind of treat them as little marketing opportunities. So even the bad ones, they really kind of look at this and say, first of all, I'm not necessarily responding to the person. I'm responding to everyone else who's going to read this exchange. It's like a little story, right? And I want every customer who comes to my Yelp or my TripAdvisor or whatever, my Angie's List, to see that I am super engaged on this stuff. So I can't be mean. I can't be sarcastic because that sometimes doesn't read right. I just have to, if I did something wrong, I have to admit it and be concise, because it's a story that will stick with you forever. I mean, internet doesn't go away.
Wow.
So that's kind of the mentality. And if they get a great review, they kind of show it off. Maybe put it in an email newsletter, or they tweet it thanking the customer. And if they get a bad review, they go kind of full confront the issue, like attack the issue, not the customer. A lot of businesses, just that knee-jerk reaction is you're like, screw them. I'm not gonna answer that. It's not even my customer, or they were mean to me. It's like I'm not saying anything to them, it's just a knee-jerk reaction. It's everybody kind of wants to be heard, so that's really the thing. But you're not really answering them so much as you are answering everyone else who's going to read that exchange, and they don't know what went down between you.
How do you get consistently awesome 5-star reviews? And I know the easy answer is great service, but I mean, like, how do you take a bad situation and turn it into a great one? Did you look at any of that? I bought the guy that installed my garage. I saw on Yelp, which I almost never go to Yelp, but I went to Yelp because I needed something to look at, and I didn't know anyone who did that. And this one company had 512 5-star reviews. Wow. I'm like, I'm going to go with these guys, and I had him out there. He was just as professional as his star reviews. Now, he does great service, but somehow he also got them to go give him all those reviews, and it's probably crushing his business in a good way. How do you do that?
Well,
real quick. Sorry, before I say that, everyone out there on H2H Chat, keep your questions coming on H2H Chat, because the second half of this is going to be Q&A for Daniel and Suzie. Susie's going to ask your questions to Daniel. So on H2H, hashtag H2H Chat, ask your questions away as we go. She's going to collect them. She's going to ask him. Okay, go ahead, Daniel. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, well, so the interesting thing was, it's not so much about being amazing, because not that many businesses are legitimately actually amazing places. It's more about just setting expectations. I had gutters installed somewhat recently in advance of the El Nino that actually didn't ever seem to arrive. We didn't seem to have an El Nino, but he had a really good year thanks to El Nino, the gutter guy. He's so busy, and he kind of said that. I found him on Angie's List. And he came out, and I've never met anyone so passionate about something like gutters in my life. He's like, just loves gutters. He's totally into everything gutter related, and I was impressed by that. But he kind of went down we're 6 weeks out on the schedule, and that's just the way it's going to be. And he set that expectation, and then a few days after that, after I said, sure, sounds fine to me, I can wait 6 weeks, he called and said, "Hey, I've got the stuff, and I had a cancellation this morning. Can you come right out?" And I was amazed because like 6 weeks, and suddenly he's going to get this done, today. And he came out. It was done in a few hours, and the service was awesome. He was here, managing it, but that itself wasn't my expectation. He had just blown my expectations out of the water, and it's not because he was amazing. He was good at setting those expectations. I think that's part of it, actually. It's part of the magic of good service. It's just kind of saying, like, parking around our restaurants pretty tough. So make sure you give yourself an extra 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And we'll see it when you get here. It's just kind of setting predetermining what are the things that might irritate people, and you can't fix them all, but you can at least make people aware of it.
Right.
I think that's part of the magic of good service, and that leads to, he got an amazing 5-star review on me, and I think it leads to people feeling like this business owner is dialed in. They get it. And I think that's what I was seeing a lot of case studies in, and was doing research, are guys like the gutter guy. They love their business, but they're also just dialed in. They know how to make the system work.
Yeah. I had why do I now think maybe I have more time with reviews than I ever thought before, now that I'm on this with you, because my son was taking fencing lessons, and the guy completely mischarged us, and when we responded back, he argued with us and argued and argued and argued, and we went on and we were looking at the reviews on his website, and we weren't the only ones. Like the theme on every single review was the guy argues. He argues, he argues, he argues. I never went back because, again, I'm too nice of a guy. I never actually left a review because I don't like leaving anonymous reviews. I think that's okay. I'm gonna say it. That's the pussy way out. And if you do sorry, I don't swear a lot, but I really think that that's like a really bad thing to actually leave an anonymous review. But yet people do, and all of them were anonymous. So what do you think? Did you come up with anything about the anonymous factor and how you deal with that?
Yeah, I think that's shady. I mean, it sort of depends on the platform. Some platforms, anonymous reviews are super common, or semi-anonymous stuff. But if it's on somewhere like Angie's List, an anonymous review on Angie's List is kind of uncommon. I mean, you can submit one anonymously, but it's rather difficult to do. So to some degree it depends on the platform, but you kind of have to look at these and say, this just smells fishy. Something's not right with this, and you sort of know when you read that stuff. Sometimes I'll even, if it's a big purchase decision I'm looking at, I'll even look into the profiles of some of those reviews and like something's just not right with these people. Like they have 1 review or 2 reviews or 3 reviews. I had that experience actually in Puerto Vallarta, sorry, a few years ago at a restaurant. It was like #1 on TripAdvisor, crazy good reviews, and I didn't look carefully enough. And it's just dinner, whatever. It's not a big purchase decision, so I didn't give it that much research. But I went back later because it was just awful. Everything was awful.
Oh man!
And I went back later and looked at the reviews of like, they bought all of these reviews, just about guaranteed, because they were so fishy. People from Poland and the Czech Republic, they may be going to Puerto Vallarta, but I don't know that they are TripAdvisor reviewers who happen to be going to Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Mitch Jackson said, also never argue with somebody who uses a sword for a living. I think he's right. I mean, like if you're going to review a black belt karate studio, I'm not sure I would like give them a bad review. So anyway, that's a great point. Like you can't trust the reviews. Like if you have all these great reviews and then you go there and it's not that great, what did they buy their reviews? Like now what?
I left them a bad review and just kind of called them out and said it totally mismatched my experience at this place. I'm not the hardest person to please, but it was pretty much a mismatch for me. And that restaurant disappeared eventually. I was back there last year and it was gone. That place was completely gone. So I think they ended up going out of business. Can't say it's because of that, but some of it's kind of on the customer too. If you see stuff, I didn't go after them on a campaign or anything, but it just was like I was disappointed. Didn't quite meet what I thought were the expectations, but anyway, I got fed.
Is this something that you should be doing? Is this something that Suzie just texted me that we are now trending on Twitter. So congratulations, Daniel, for making that happen. Your reviews are going to be great now because we now trended on Twitter. So and congrats everybody out there who is sharing all their tweets. Again, make sure you bring your questions in to Suzie because she's going to be starting here real soon in about 10 minutes, and we're going to get that going. So my question, next question, Daniel, is about reputation management companies and whether that's a good thing to do for businesses, or can businesses manage that on their own? I know you covered that in your book. What do you think about that?
Yeah, the reputation management industry, and I have to be careful when I use that term because I kind of work in that business, and you do too. I mean, we're somewhat sort of in that business, but not directly. There's some different elements of it that are actually kind of shady. I actually detailed a whole blackmail scheme that some companies use to troll for customers, which as a small business owner is terrifying. I mean, you're like the mafia on steroids there. But I think for the most part, a lot of the things reputation management companies can do for a business, you can do at much lower cost with some elbow grease. It's that kind of gamble of, do I have more time than money here, and what do I value more in this case, my money or my time? If you don't have a lot of time but you have a lot of money, you could pay someone to do that for you. If it's the reverse, you're cash poor but you have a little extra time, you could just about do everything they do for you. So I think that's part of it. And then there's lots of real, either free or really cheap tools that you can use to track reviews and stuff for your business, like review trackers or Yext or some of these sites.
So what is that? Easier. Review tracker?
Review trackers. The other one is Yext. Yext, Y-E-X-T. Yeah.
Okay.
So those, it kind of gives you a little bit of assist. They're not super expensive. So that's kind of what I usually say. The reputation management companies themselves, it's a dicey business. I have a questionnaire in there that if you're looking at hiring, if someone's looking to hire one of those companies, you really should go through it, because the way they answer questions about their own business tells you a lot about what they do for your business. Are they going to do black hat SEO, and how do they handle bad reviews? Never had one. That kind of stuff. You want to get some psychology of how they manage their business, because you're putting a lot of eggs in their basket.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely are, and it's kind of hard to figure out whether a reputation company is good at their job if they have all great reviews. How did they do that, or and what was the process that went into that, and so on and so forth. So tell me the one thing in your book that really surprised you, that you didn't, and maybe there's more, but just give me one that really you just didn't see it coming, or you thought, wow, that's a whole different concept than what I thought this was going to be about.
I was really surprised. I had a theory when I started researching this book. I had a theory that whole blackmail scheme I was referring to might exist, but it was kind of like a foil hat kind of theory. I was like, I have to imagine that this is happening. And then when I discovered actual case study, there was a group of photographers, wedding photographers I happened to. They detailed it in a lot of detail. I was appalled. Like, this is awful. I'm shocked that this is that blatant, and there's no regulatory action. There's like no attorneys general looking into this, no law. It's just awful situation. It really was surprising. And I think, if I were a cafe owner or something like that, I would be a little bit terrified by that, because your entire reputation is on the line there. That's your income.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I think it's one of those things where you don't ever really know what you're going to get into when you write a book on something that's really straightforward, you think, and then you start digging into it and you find these little facets, because really what you're talking about here is a very personal experience. There's lots of mini personal experiences happening, and it's very you're talking about something that's so close to the heart each and every time. It's either a really good experience, it's an okay experience, it's a really bad experience. I mean, really, that's what we're talking about, right? So, so how do you deal with the emotional side of all this? Did you do any research or have any thoughts around emotions and what kinds of emotions how to address those emotions?
Yeah. Well, I think the best way there's one of the examples I have in my book. This guy runs a moving company in Austin, Texas, called Square Cow Movers, and he is sole proprietor. And
what does the business do? It's a Squared Cow.
Square Cow Mover. They're a moving company, so they're moving you across town or something.
I'm like, these are not round cows.
They're square cows.
Square cows.
Square cow. And he.
What part of the country is this?
These weird transgenic square cows. Like those square watermelons you see in Japan. They grow square cows. They're easier to store that way.
Right.
Square.
And hence this specialized moving company.
Yes. They are in the business of moving square cows. But he developed this mentality because he was finding that he got really emotional with some of his customer responses, and that didn't work in his favor. So he developed this thing he calls it stop, drop, and roll, where he just like, stop what I'm doing here. I'm getting too hot-headed. I'm just kind of like take a minute, drop the attitude, maybe ask a friend of mine to take a look at this, or a colleague, or my mom, or somebody else, and then I'm gonna go ahead and post that response. And it's really helpful because particularly for a small business, you're super, super emotional about those things. It's maybe you had a bad day and deliveries were late and just everything was wrong, and now you have to answer customers. It's easy to be a little bit emotional, and
right.
So he follows that mentality, and I think it's really, really good. That's the one. You're not going to be free of the emotion, but you can deal with it. It's kind of a little bit of mindfulness, actually.
Oh, that's a good one. So take a breath, think before you.
Right. Maybe you want to be empathetic to the customer and listen to them, but it's not easy to do that.
Yeah.
It is kind of mindfulness, which I think is actually a topic for one of your upcoming H2H chats. Am I wrong?
It is. Janet Fouts.
Yep.
We had an awesome chat on mindfulness.
Oh, right, we had it.
With Janet. Yeah.
I wasn't on there. That's why
Yes.
Yeah.
Rachel and I hosted it. It was great. It's one of our most replayed H2H chats, actually, as of last week. Congrats,
Janet.
Janet.
Oh, wow. Go, Janet.
Yeah.
And she's actually tweeting right now. She just tweeted.
He is.
Square cow mover fit in a truck. And then she had a GIF. So she's throwing out funny stuff right now.
Yep.
How many square cows can you fit in a truck?
Yeah, I think you've kind of gotten everyone's emotion going now. Your buddy should pay for some free advertisement right now. Right.
So okay, so we're gonna close this out here with a final question. Before I want to make sure that everyone, again, we're getting lots of questions, so I don't think we're gonna be not having anything to answer here. But one of the things that I do want to talk about before I pass this over to Suzie is the process for now getting more reviews, because if you're starting out, or you're even a business that has been around a long time and you just haven't been a part of the whole review system, you talk about some functional things like stickers and decals, but is there a kind of a general process that you a formula that you like, that you put in place, that you talk about in the book, that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, there are some of the obvious things. The stickers, you can put it on your receipt or business card or anything you give out that you don't necessarily want to say, hey, go review me. Just say, I'm on TripAdvisor or I'm on Yelp, and I would love your feedback. What's really great, I just actually heard this at Social Media Marketing World last week. There was an attorney, and he told the story of how he gets reviews. It's kind of weird as an attorney to ask, someone like, "Will you review me?" That's odd, right? But there are certain clients he likes and would prefer to have more clients like that. And what he'll say is, I really enjoyed working with you. You were awesome. You're super responsive. Best example of a client I could get. I would love more clients like you. If you have any referral, or if you'd be willing to review me on Yelp, I'd really appreciate it. Because that tells the client, number one, that you really took time to ask me, and I feel good that I'm one of your favorites. But that also gives them something to say on Yelp now, like, this guy was awesome at X, X, and X. So that's kind of his way of getting Yelp reviews, and he's got and reviews on Avo, which is a lawyer review site, legal review site. So that's how he does it. Every business you have to find the right little way to do that. Some cases you can just outright say, "Hey, I'm on Yelp. I'd love a review from you." But you're not always gonna, like a doctor, you're not gonna want to do that.
Right. Yeah. I had an itch, and I've never had anybody solve my itch than anyone else. It's kind of a weird review.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else that I didn't ask you that I should have before I pass the baton? Is there one thing that God darn it, why didn't he ask me that?
Well, one question I always get is how much time should I have to devote to this thing? It's not my job. This is not my job. And I sort of laid out in the book a 20-minute thing.
Good. Okay.
Which is, and it's a place to start. Not every business can do it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Not everybody needs 20 minutes, but it's a good place to start.
Okay.
It gives you a piece of time to work with.
Great.
So 20 minutes a day is kind of the thing.
So everyone, this is only 140 pages. It's not a long book. You guys can get through this in very, very quick couple hours, if not. So definitely do that. And Suzie, I'm going to pass the baton over to you and take it from here with some questions. Ready, set, go.
All right. We are getting a huge amount of questions. Thank you so much, everyone. Please keep tweeting them in. Even if we're not able to get to all of them, I know, we'll definitely, I hope Daniel will be able to take the time to check through the stream afterwards. So keep that conversation going. Lots of great stuff. One thing I was going to say in terms of doctors, I actually use ZocDoc as a source of reviews. So I've actually found that, and then a few others where it's niche spaces, and you're actually able to get that. I would never go to Yelp, though, for a doctor review. That would just be too bizarre.
A lot of people do. A lot of people do.
Couldn't deal with that. That would, I don't know. But I personally love, so actually, what do you think about these niche sites, say ZocDoc or even LinkedIn, I would say, for some kind of very professional concept?
Yeah, I mean, it works really well, particularly when they're structured around the parameters in that particular industry. Like ZocDoc allows you to search by how long you have to wait in the waiting room, on average, that kind of stuff. That's great because it makes it easy for the consumer to flush that stuff out. So I'm a fan of them, and it's easier to manage that as a doctor than Yelp. It's it's a different audience, I think.
Yeah, for me, I always feel like there's a sense of expertise as well, because if you're using it, you're thinking about that, maybe not griping. So we have, I'm grouping questions into, it looks like we have 3 general trends. We're going to definitely try to do lightning round here so that we can get through as many as we can. So we have some discussions kind of about the future of reviews, where we're going in terms of reviews. We also have taking reviews from the consumer aspect, and then best practices for business, people running business, and that's I think where I want to go ahead and start, and we'll end up with kind of the future reviews, I think. So let's get rolling. So first off,
A great question here from Adam, who has told us that he is viewing the Hangout on one phone and tweeting on another phone. This is the second week in a row he's done this. Good on you, Adam. I do want photos of this. So he says, let's talk about companies. What do you think about companies who are requiring our patrons or offering, saying if you give a 5-star Yelp review, you'll get a discounted service, such as, say, a fitness.
That is a definite no-no on the Yelp front. That is a no-go situation for Yelp. They can do all kinds of bad things. Even put a little thing on your Yelp profile that says this person is compensating people for reviews. So,
oh, wow.
What you can do, at least on Yelp, is they call it a check-in offer, where you allow people who check in on Yelp to then claim like % off or something, which is sort of the reverse way of doing that. But
yeah,
they will definitely, that is not a good situation to get in, if especially on Yelp.
So Adam, now you know this is not good. So Monica's joining us today. Shout out to Monica. So glad to see you on the business stream. The Twitter stream. She's asking about business, being a business owner. She says, as a business owner, how can you analyze the trends in your reviews to understand issues that need to be fixed versus the sour grapes reviews? What are some good tips there?
Yeah, that's an important point because the context there is, if you do that, you can prevent future bad reviews from happening. So if everybody complains about the air conditioning or something, and you can identify that, then you can kind of prevent that from happening in the future. If you have tons and tons of reviews, if you're like a cafe or restaurant or something, you probably need some software. Review trackers is one you can use to do that. They do some semantic analysis, kind of show you trends and keywords and stuff, like word cloud kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
You can certainly manually just go through and count it yourself if you don't have dozens and dozens of reviews, but that starts to add up on the time front. I will say, though, if you're doing it every day, you might just be able to start noticing trends that come up if you're really taking time to listen to it every day. So there are different ways of doing it. My preference is always the easier way, which is pay a little money for some software to make my life a little easier. But
right. So great question here from our friend Julie. Hey, Julie, so glad that you could join us today. She says, what's a healthy cadence to request feedback? She says she tends to get them immediately after an experience with a brand. Is one way more effective than another?
There is a little bit of nuance on that one for the type of business that it is. You can, if you're a hotel or a bed and breakfast or something, certainly follow up by email, a few days later, because people are traveling. Maybe they don't have the chance right away to write a review. But the sooner you do it, the better. The sooner to point of service, the better. Particularly if it was an awesome experience, and it was an awesome experience.
Right.
You delivered that thing, so they were thrilled. Right then and there, say, I want more customers like you. I love you. Will you, leave feedback? That's the place to do it. The place
immediately.
To do it.
Yeah. So it's still in your mind. So question here from Tina. Tina, thanks so much for joining us. Always great to see your smiling profile picture. She says, as a business owner, do you address negative reviews, or I guess does one, so you or just one, address negative reviews publicly or offline?
Differing points of view on that answer.
I would imagine. So maybe you can kind of sum up and then give us your opinion.
This is how I usually tell people to approach it. If it's a situation where it's going to take you some time to get this thing done, take it offline. I mean, if it's going to be back and forth, what day were you here? What was your server's name? If it's like that kind of a situation, take it offline and maybe call them or email them some other way to get it done faster. Always come back again and say, great chatting with you. Glad we could address your problem. Hope to see you next time. If you can't get to that answer in 2 steps or less on Twitter or Facebook or wherever it's happening, then you should take it offline. But always come back to that customer, so other people know that you
The public
fixed
space.
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an important kind of circle back. Other people see that, oh, they actually came back and finished the thought, which is important.
Right.
So it's kind of a two-step. If I can do this thing in 2 or less, I'm going to do it online. Yelp, you can only reply once, so that's not going to happen there. But if it's on Twitter or Facebook or somewhere else, try for 2 or less.
Right. So question here from JS Gilbert. Hey, JS, so glad to see you today. He says, what do you think about businesses agreeing to what he's calling the blackmailing tactics of many review sites to pay fees to have negative reviews removed?
I mean, that's one of the most morally repugnant parts of the reputation in this industry, because it preys on business owners. It really does. And I encourage you, if you come across those businesses, report them to an attorney general or to Yelp. Yelp actually took a bunch of those companies out of business fairly recently. So they're actively looking for those folks. Report them, because that if you know how the internet works, you're not able to just hit a delete button, but they certainly prey on people's concerns and their interests. So it's a very good question.
So I have a question here from Brooke. Brooke, I'm so glad to see you today. I know that you've been trying to join us for many weeks, and Monday's not a good time for you. So yay, Brooke. She says, how do you know a review is real and not a competitor trying to sabotage your business? This is something that I'm seeing coming up a few times in the Twitter stream. There's just this real concern. Similar kind of attached to this, we've had a few that are talking about a competitor may be buying negative reviews and all of this. How do you figure out what's authentic?
We can always look, or almost always look, at who wrote the review. So look at the profile on Yelp or TripAdvisor and see, do they review other businesses or not? I had a case I wrote about on my blog, and they were on my podcast a few weeks ago. A jeweler in Boston had, on Facebook, their competitor wrote about 150 one-star reviews almost overnight. They had hired through Fiverr, that website Fiverr.
Yep, JS Gilbert was mentioning Fiverr on the screen, one of the examples.
And she actually went through, she couldn't get Facebook to answer anything about anything for that problem. She went through her peers at inbound.org, which is an online marketers forum. It's a great place. I mean, she found people there to help her. And they kind of put a little defense together, and then they went to Facebook and said, we really need your help here. And they got most of those reviews removed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Ugh, that's like one of those like sending chills down your spine, right? It's awful.
Yeah, and that would happen right before the holiday sales, so right at the beginning of December, which is like the worst possible timing ever.
Oh my God. Oh, that is painful. Shows the power of community, though, right? Being able to go to a forum and saying, kind of helps maybe restore your faith in humanity a little bit.
Yeah. We all compete, but we ultimately, we want to play fair.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's a really great question from my buddy Mike Haberman. He says, because things on the internet never go away, is it unfair to rate people, or I guess businesses, so he's talking about people, but businesses, say, early in their careers? I also have a similar question here, talking about basically, a duration of reviews. How much should we be thinking about the fact that something can change, people can change, businesses change? How does that factor in?
I think it does. I mean, you can always go back and update an old review or remove it as the consumer who wrote it. If you feel that it's just not fair, they've come a long way, or write a new review at some point and say, I took a couple years off of this place and went back, and everything I didn't like has been changed and fixed, and they're awesome now. So that would make them very happy. It gives you some karma points, so why not do that? But as long as you're fair in a review, what's wrong with that? I mean, honesty is the best policy for everyone, right?
Right.
If we could all be a little bit more honest, the world would be a better place. And so that's usually what I say. And as a business, you don't necessarily want to discourage that. You want to encourage it because it will ultimately make you better.
So let's talk about starting a new business. Obviously, when you have a small amount of reviews, I have a few questions here coming in from people. Brooke, once again, thanks Brooke, is asking us, is there a general process for a new business to get reviews? Then kind of I want to tie this into a great question from Janet, who says, should you actually go as far as to encourage people not to review you on Yelp unless it's going to be a stellar review if you just have a few reviews? How do you balance that?
Yeah, well, there's actually a mechanism. I referenced it a little while ago on Yelp. It's specific to Yelp. They offer this check-in offer. So if you're a new business, it's free. The last time I checked, the last time I heard and knew and researched this, it's a free thing you can offer, and it's a discount or a free thing you give to people who check in and claim it. What's lovely about that is that sort of encourages Yelp's most active people to then come in, and they're more likely to write you a review, and if they do, it's also more likely to stick there and stay there. So you kind of have to make sure you're going to be giving the right level of service at that particular offer stage. But it's a great way to get 5, 8, 10 good reviews right away, which is important. It can set you off on the right path. And then you can sort of do the whole coming back, asking people to review you or giving feedback as you start to build momentum.
That's a good tactic. So question here from Alan, who is joining us from the air. He's in a JetBlue plane right now, so shout out to JetBlue for stable internet today, apparently. He says, as a consumer, what are some tricks to filter through reviews to find the real and accurate ones?
Certainly, my method, and it's not exactly easy to do, it takes a little bit of elbow grease, but I like to look at the person who wrote the review. As a business owner, you can sometimes maybe figure out who that person was. And as a consumer, it just helps you determine if it feels illegitimate and you don't want to consider it. Most consumers look at anywhere between 2 and 10 reviews when they're reviewing or when they're looking at businesses. So they're doing the same thing. The vast majority of us are kind of taking that pulse anyway. And I do it. I don't know if you do it, Susie. I always look. If it's something I find suspicious, I always look at the reviewer because I want to make sure I'm making the right decision.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. I look and see, if I'm, and also if I'm seeing only 5 stars and 1 star, it makes me nervous.
Yeah. Very few people write only 5-star reviews. I do a mix of like 4 and some 5s, maybe a rare 3.
Yeah.
So you can kind of flush it out pretty quickly.
Yeah. It's always hard though, and once again, it comes back to those new businesses. It's really hard when they just have 1 review or 2 reviews to navigate that. So I want to go into these. I have a bucket of questions that are really talking about reviews in general and trends and things like this. So great question from our buddy Roshni. Thanks so much for joining us, Roshni. He says, so bottom line, what's the point if reviews and followers can be bought?
What's the point?
What's the point? I love this question. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to add to that. What's the point?
What's the point? It's a game of arbitrage at that point. I can buy more than you can.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, ultimately, you're in this for the lifelong or the journey of your life of your business, but it's not lifelong, at least the life of your business. It's a long-term play. So if your whole point is to get in, make a bunch of money, and get out quickly, you can make that happen, but you want to cultivate the best long-term reputation for your business that you can, because it's going to stick with you forever.
Right.
So that's how I suggest people look at it. I mean, you can kind of parse the nuance of I can buy a bunch of reviews and make a big splash. Sure, knock yourself out, but that's going to probably come back to bite you at some point, maybe in the very near future or maybe in the middle distant future. But just think about the length of how long you want to be in business and make sure that fits your game plan, because the more honest you are about your own business, the more it's going to reflect in reviews.
So I have our friends at Pay Compliment who tune in each Monday when it's very, very late for them, or very early in Australia. I think it's very early. They said it was 5 a.m., I think, last time. So they're saying, kind of related to this, with so much manipulation of reviews, are you finding, in your research, are you seeing any sort of worrying trend where consumers are losing trust in the review system, given all this additional research, all of this? Do you think we've maybe hit a bubble? You know, we're in a bubble and we're going to peak and it's going to shift away from this, or are you not seeing that?
Yeah, I wish that were true, because it would make this the whole thesis, you know, like less and less important. Reviews will eventually not matter, but that's just not the case. I mean, the latest research I saw was people trust online reviews more than their aunts and their friends, aunts and uncles, or their friends and family.
Wow.
And I don't know if that means that we don't think our aunt is that trustworthy, or that we just have some weird trust we place in other people's opinions we don't know, or we assume because there's so much of it that it kind of reflects society. But the truth is, everybody trusts reviews. You know, I often joke in the travel industry, I think it's probably close to 125% of people are reading reviews before they book a hotel. There's no lack of information there. So I wish that were true.
Yeah.
I mean, if this were a declining trend, we could be having a different conversation about it. But
yeah,
it's not, which is the whole problem.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So a follow-up here to this from J.S. Gilbert. Can always trust him to give me great questions. So he says, once again, he's rather skeptical of the online review. He's seeing, he's seen the stuff about Fiverr and all this stuff. So what he's saying is, he says, given the fact that there still is this ambiguity, we're seeing things, bought, and so he's concerned about consumer trust in reviews. He says, do you think that we're going to, what's the role then in, influencer marketing, online video, maybe, looking at limited trusted sources as opposed to having a plethora of all sorts of different sites? Do you think there's space for that? So
I actually absolutely do. I mean, if you look at the complaints out of Yelp's algorithm, people say, I have all these amazing 5-star reviews, but they're hidden, and there's these like 4 or 5 reviews on my business profile. Those are Yelp's influencers, right? Mm-hmm. That's who Yelp says, these people are influential to us on our platform. And that same dynamic exists on TripAdvisor. That same dynamic exists on every other site just about. The role of influencers, I actually think, is more important now than probably ever has been, for that reason. If you work with Yelp's influencers or you work with TripAdvisor's top reviewers, you're basically playing that game of arbitrage a little bit. I'm making sure that people who can tell my story to the biggest audience possible are getting that experience. And so I think the role of influencers is huge for any business, whether it's a car dealer or a cafe. It matters.
How do we navigate? How do we keep the influencer industry from becoming more of one? Okay, I was paid to say this, so I'm just gonna say this, right? How do we keep that from becoming inauthentic?
Yeah. To some degree, I think that's on them. That's on the influencer. Right. I mean, the FTC has tons and tons of restrictions about what they can say, what they can claim, and so I'm not suggesting that we ask them to. It's not like pay to play, but if I have to prioritize a group of people, I'm definitely going to find out who those influencers are and prioritize them, for sure.
As a business owner.
For sure, yeah.
How do you find those? Are they publicized? I know I'm sure I'm about to get that question tweeted. So
yeah, how do I find influencers?
Yeah. Yes, how do you find those? Is this something you just go back through and you see who's been flagged, or does Yelp publish this, or?
Yeah, I mean, you can just look through on Yelp and look at in cities. You can see like the best place to start is your maybe not your competitors, but your sort of peers in an area. So you're at a cafe. Look at some of the reviews for other cafes and see who are the influencers. There are people who have written reviews that have high counts on them. They're like lots of friends, lots of reviews. Those folks may be influencers. Certainly, if you pay Yelp, if you join as a business, they're going to help you do that. But there are some ways you can back into that too. And not just on Yelp, on just about every site you can do that with some elbow grease. So I think that's one way to do it. Very good question though. How do I find those influencers? I mean, you could pay a PR agency or an influencer marketing agency to do it for you. Social Toaster, there's a bunch of different ways to slice that, but you're not necessarily looking for thousands of them. Maybe just 15 or 20 to get you started.
Yep. So 2 last questions, and these are kind of big, broad ones. Really interesting one here from Mitch Jackson. He says, if you could only pick one, what do you think is more important and valuable? A great online review or a great offline in real life review?
Is that me as a consumer or me as a business?
Let us go as a business.
As a business, I take the online review every day, all day. As a consumer, I mean, just for myself, I would take the offline review because I tend to take those with a little bit more trust, but that's just me. But that transaction happened. No one else knows that. Right.
That's really interesting, though, right? And that maybe that right there points out kind of a balance that we're trying to deal with. Is how do we bridge the offline and the online?
Yeah. He just tweeted as a business, just so you know.
As a business, all right.
Yeah, as a business, I would take the online review all day, every day.
Because it's publicized, because it's, because of that. So last question I have here from Monica, and I think this is really important. So she says passengers can rate Uber drivers, and now drivers can also rate passengers. What are your thoughts about this? Will that be a trend so that, going individual, rating your customers? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's cathartic, for sure. Like, that was a 1-star customer. I don't care to see them again.
Yep.
I mean, there's certain danger in doing that. There was this people rating app called People.
Going to ask you about that. Which, yes, it came out. Their Facebook page is like a case study in how not to deal with customers. They're just, it makes me want to tear my hair out the way that they treat people on Facebook. Anyway, please continue.
The way People treats people. This is P-E-E-P-L-E, People app. It allows you to rate and review other individuals.
Yeah.
With remarkable amounts of detail about them. I mean, I don't know if we'll go that far, but I would kind of want to know as a business who my peers think are their worst customers. I don't know that that's data I would like, actually. Yeah. So maybe we're headed there.
Do you think a review setting, though, where we're talking about like giving stars, is the best way to actually do this?
Probably in Uber's case, because it's a mobile platform, so it's such a small footprint on the screen. Maybe in that case. Yeah, maybe in that case. It may be more efficient to do it in a binary net promoter way. Would you do business with this customer again, yes or no? I don't know how we capture that, but that's I've seen different discussions about that come up among doctors, in the insurance business. I've heard some discussion about this, so people are thinking about it.
Doctors would be fascinating and kind of scary. That person's a crazy hypochondriac, but I could see someone who's abusing medical, medicine, all that.
Right.
That's fascinating. Well, thank you so much. I think this has given us tons of food for thought. I seriously have gotten through about 50% of the questions with this, so lots and lots of conversation. I definitely, check out the H2H Chat hashtag. Lots of food for thought there, and thank you so much for joining us. This has been a pleasure.
Indeed.
BK, over to you.
All right, and while I'm wrapping this up, Suzie, if you wouldn't mind looking up next week's guest, and if we need to announce that in the next day or so, we can. which it looks like we will. So we'll announce that tomorrow.
It is a surprise.
One thing that I wanted to just quickly talk about is this book. It should be your handbook. And I don't think that there's anybody that isn't on this H2H chat that does not have a business that doesn't receive testimonials or reviews of some kind, and that means that this book is for you. So I definitely highly recommend this book, not only because Daniel's a good friend of mine, but also because he really is the kind of person who puts a lot of hard work into really putting a process together, and that's what this book is. It's a process, and it really kind of walks you through as a manual as to how to do it. It's not just this high-level stuff, because there's only so much we can talk about in an hour on H2H chat. So definitely highly recommend this. I know that the link is out on Twitter and has been shared magically by Daniel himself while he's on the chat. That's funny. And so, but there's I highly recommend it. Please go do that. And then we will be back in touch in the next day with the next guest for Monday. But I do want to thank you again, everyone out there, for being on another H2H chat with us. I was really looking forward to this, and then it completely supersized the expectations that I had of this show, and I think your tweets are representative of that. So Daniel, if you wouldn't mind jumping on afterwards, it doesn't have to be right afterwards, but maybe at some point over the next maybe 24 hours, and just answering a few of them, because we barely even got to the questions, so that would be great.
Yeah. We'll do.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, and congrats again, everybody, for trending on Twitter another week. Daniel, congrats to you on your book. Fantastic job, and we will see you guys all again next week. Same time, same place. Cheers.
Bye, guys.